The Democrat Party is not a political party. It is a domestic extremist organization. Look at Chicago. They've shut down the police department. They've handcuffed law enforcement. And as President Trump says, they have turned the streets of Chicago into a bloody killing field. Here in Washington, D.C., before President Trump launched the federal law enforcement liberation in D.C., there was a murder on the streets of this town every other day. Body after body after body after body. That was Washington, D.C. Residents were afraid to go to restaurants. They were afraid to go into entire neighborhoods. They were getting carjacked right and left, robbed and beaten. That was Washington, D.C. Now we're 2 weeks homicide free, the safest the city has ever been in its entire history. And the Democrats, instead of jumping up and down and saying, thank you, President Trump. Thank you for saving our lives. Thank you for saving our cities. Instead of thanking him for that, they're saying, President Trump, how dare you save our lives? How dare you save our children? How dare you save our city? The Democrat Party, Sean, that exists today, it disgusts me.
Why are these people not known, identified, and arrested? This is insurrection against the legitimate authority of the federal government. These two teams, my friends, Trump, Stephen Miller, the American government, us on the one hand, the one side of the playing field, and the Antifa, George Soros commies on the other side, are not of equal moral or legal merit. Only one side are the legally, democratically elected representatives of the body politic of the American people. The others are terrorists. These are not two teams of equal merit. Why are these people openly advocating, giving seminars in real time on committing violent crimes upon the people we hire, the American body politic hires, to protect ourselves, our wives, our children, our society, our community from terrorist activity?
But again, this is definitely a high-risk thing to do. De-arresting increases your chances of being arrested. So keep that in mind. But when somebody is being arrested, you can help stop that.
Look at all the American Mexican flags. Look at all the Mexican flags. The bizarre thing, America sucks. Mexico is great. Please don't deport anybody out of America. Does it make any sense to you?
From being taken by ICE and adding to the numbers they're kidnapping. Stand around.
Kidnapping. They're kidnapping. They're disappearing. This is the brainwashing propaganda that gets these dummies, these useful idiot foot soldiers in their infinite numbers out on the streets.
Get as many bodies as possible around whoever is being arrested. Do not move. If ICE moves, then you move, but do not walk away.
Why? Look at the chick. See the chick in the middle here? I know it's a bad image. This chick, right in the middle with the megaphone giving this webinar. Why are they always so well fed? America's starving oppressed. Unbelievable. Now, the good news is that we are beginning to go after infrastructure and command and control. There are, of course, strategic resources and tactical resources, and we need to go after strategic resources like the funding supplied by people like Soros to the overarching entities that organize, train, make these protests possible. These are not grassroots. These people are not wearing uniforms for no reason. But in this crowd, we see Border Patrol agents went into the crowd and took stacks of bottles of water that they had prepared as a tactical resource. A cart of water, other items that has been by the main protest crowd prior to agents deploying tear gas, and pushing the crowd away from the Broad View ICE facility. And as I note here, quoting Napoleon, amateurs focus on tactics, professionals focus on logistics. Another form of logistics, of course, is command and control. Command and control. These are two twin brothers who've been part of this, the Antifa, that's not an organization, that's just an idea. Jeremy Hammond, he's been involved in leading Antifa actions for more than a decade, and his brother as well. Well, got picked up, got arrested by the police. His brother also got arrested by the police. When you take out the command and control, you neutralize effectively 10, 20, 50, 100 of these NPC lunatics, mostly white girls, who are powerless to do anything without the direction of these kinds of, I can't call them men, whatever they are, these kinds of Antifa fascists. This account notes they're grabbing the organizers of the protests. Both Hammond brothers are in jail tonight waiting on federal charges. Lock them up for 10 or 20 years and Antifa will go away like that. And they're beginning to go after another infrastructure resource, which is the pro-Antifa prosecutors. Virginia Attorney General Jason Miyares says Soros-backed local prosecutor Steve Descano schemed to drop charges against, here in this case, illegal immigrants, but it's the same for Antifa, so they wouldn't be deported, and in the process illegally discriminated against American citizens who don't get those special breaks when they're caught on a domestic violence charge or a DWI charge or whatever the charge might be. The American citizen gets prosecuted and put in jail. The illegal immigrant, the Antifa, remember the two black lawyers in New York City a few years back? They firebombed a police car. They were looking at 5 to 10 years in prison, and the federal judge gave one of them 18 months and the other one a year and a day and said, you were just having a bad day. We got to target those people too. We have to target these feckless, unelected, black-robed, tyrannical, inferior district trial court judges who are letting these terrorists, are letting these illegal migrant third world invaders degrade and destroy our great nation. It is a war, my folks. And if we're smart, we'll end this war victoriously without it having to go any hotter than the left has already made it. Pulling rocks out of landscaping and throwing it off of bridges onto ICE vehicles, onto police vehicles. It's the classic, as this account notes, it's the classic push and push and push leftist thing where they keep upping the level of casual violence deployed until some rando cop loses composure, shoots 2 or 3 of them, and then they'll call it a massacre. And these will be heroes, martyrs of the Antifa revolution, like the Boston Massacre, like the Kent State Massacre. It's all part of the training in this scheme. Their commanders are happy to sacrifice them as martyrs to the cause of destroying America. So you have to have a bright line test. 0 assault. You're not allowed to touch these officers. 1 finger is a felony. I'm not the only person making this observation. Infantry Dort, a pretty good follow on X, says an unfortunate scenario to ponder. An armed confrontation with federal forces, agents trying to uphold the rule of law. A firefight ensues. The irregular forces, Antifa terrorists, lose, obviously. But the media and politicians twist the narrative, blaming those who upheld the law instead of those who broke it. I remember seeing the same playbook when he was overseas. While one could argue we didn't belong overseas, the tactic remains the same. Put your irregular forces, and you see this, they put them in the front lines. Women, people in wheelchairs. Put your irregular forces in a deliberate, unwinnable position, accept the defeat, video everything, rile up support against the victor, rinse and repeat until you win. This may have worked to get us out of Iraq and Afghanistan, but those wishing to use the same playbook here forget one very crucial fact that will lead to their undoing when they use it in America. We have no place else to go. We're not evacuating America, although they seem to think they can make us evacuate our cities, that they can drive us out of Portland, Seattle, Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York. Can they? Have these become Antifa strongholds? Antifa metastatic tumors within the body politic of our great nation? I had mentioned the same thing. Here's the thing. Antifa sends in a lunatic with a gun who shoots an ICE agent, maybe some bystanders, right? We already had the progressive fascist assassin, sniper, incompetent sniper, on a rooftop in Texas firing through the garage door into the open garage door of the ICE facility at ICE agents, manages to kill a couple of detainees instead. But they don't care who they actually kill. All of these deaths are blamed on America, on ICE, including the bystander deaths killed by Antifa. And maybe ICE begins to shoot back in self-defense. That's reasonable, moral. And then more innocent bystanders in quotes, right? The lunatics wearing the black bloc and the masks and the glasses and the helmets and the boots, their uniform, their military uniform. If they get shot by an ICE agent, what do you think the body's going to look like when they take pictures of it? It'll look like Trayvon Martin, 13 years old, wearing a Hollister t-shirt with a big, happy smile on his face. That's what it'll look like. The progressive fascist left and the media, but of course I repeat myself, will paint it all as a Boston Massacre or a Kent State. And unfortunately, we see in the crowd, it's mostly these white women. America's estrogenic body politic folds like a used tampon. White women generally, are a majority of the U.S. population. They outnumber men for all of human history. All of human history. Women were generally not permitted to make societally important decisions except the last 100 years. Now, in the last 100 years, they have the same franchise as men. They outnumber men. The majority of our franchise are women. And think what you like, men and women see the world and make decisions in different ways, don't they? Is that indisputable? Even the people who are uncertain about their own gender change their behavior when they morph from one to the other, don't they? We have a different nation with a universal franchise than we did at the founding. Our founders would be spinning in their graves if they saw who we let vote today, who we let have a hand on the tiller of governing our society. And of course, we still have the usual clown saying, stop calling the protesters Antifa. Don't call them Antifa. You have no idea what these people are. They're all dressed in the same uniform. They're all holding the same signs. They all have the same unnaturally colored hair. They all have a BMI of 50. They're all shouting the same things. They're all organized at the same places, but completely random aggregations of people, I guess. We have no idea who these people are. These people could be the daughters of the American Revolution, for all you know. It could be an Amish convention. They just parked the horses and wagons around the corner. No idea who these people are. Antifa is a myth that the government is using in a conspiracy theory designed to eliminate the opposition. Wait a minute. What opposition? What opposition? And create a dictatorship. The democratically elected government now is supposed to be the dictatorship. They're supposed to be the fascists, not the forces fighting an insurrection to overthrow the democratically elected government. They're the good guys. But of course, they don't really exist. They're just an idea. They're just an idea. Mad that people on the left, by the way, this Spencer Hakimian guy, he's a perennial figure on the left. ICE and Antifa clash in Portland. His own team doesn't like it. And of course, for a randomly aggregated group of people, they even have the former supposed president of the United States, President Joe Auto-Pen Dementia Biden, making the same argument.
Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not militia.
The White House knows what Antifa is. Antifa is a militarist, anarchist enterprise that explicitly calls for the overthrow of the democratically elected United States government, law enforcement authorities, and our system of law. Thanks to the leadership of President Trump, they are now classified as a domestic terrorist organization. We have yet to see the full implications of how that designation will roll out. I can envision a lot of very effective, maybe non-obvious consequences. Like, for example, will it be much more difficult for even federal judges who lean favorably towards the Antifa terrorist to release them from prison on bail or on reasonable bail now that they've been designated members of a terrorist organization? If any of them turned out to be here, even as a legal third world migrant, designated as a terrorist organization, off you go. A lot of the benefits America generously offers, even to illegal migrants, like orders of withholding. All right, we promise not to send you to this particular country you don't like when we deport you. There's no orders of withholding for terrorists, members of a designated terrorist organization. So there are dozens of ways in which this designation could play an important role behind the scenes, not on the street confrontation, but what happens when people get grabbed and pulled in. Antifa is not an organization. We just have a flag, uniforms, official colors, local chapters, meeting places, email signups. and clear directives for members. But of course, it's just an idea that prints flyers. Direct action planned for September 28th. That was last night in Portland ICE facility. After Trump issued a statement, he plans to send in troops to protect the federal property. Of course, we know Trump activated several hundred members of the Oregon National Guard. And of course, the very masculine governor of Oregon is all upset about it, whatever her name is. To protect federal property, Antifa and communists have said they refuse to back down and plan to escalate their rioting. They have called for militant reinforcements in Seattle and Los Angeles, but it's just an idea, folks. It's just an idea. Nothing to see here, nothing to see here. And things are getting a bit more aggressive. Mobs of anti-ICE activists at the Portland ICE facility on Sunday are pepper sprayed and pushed so there's a lane for DHS vehicles to enter. This is like in Broadview, Illinois, we'll cover that as well, where eventually activists were arrested for not leaving the road. So here's what many people don't know. Things like you're not allowed to block the road. Of course, there's state laws against that. You're not allowed to just stand in a roadway. Every state has a law against that. You can be given a summons. You can be arrested if you continue to do it. So they're breaking a local ordinance, local state law. Absolutely. Roadways are for vehicles, unless you're in a crosswalk. And when you're in a crosswalk, you're supposed to be crossing, not just standing there. But of course, in Portland, the police don't do anything about this. They stand there. They're a bunch of cucks because the police are not their own independent agents. These police officers may very well, on an individual basis, want to prevent this lawlessness, but they work in a command and control structure themselves. They're answerable to the government. And the government in Portland, the government in Oregon, views Antifa as being their tribe on their team. So they're not going to use their cops to have a negative impact on Antifa. So the cops just stand there. Is it a federal law violation to stand in a public road of a state? No, probably not. But guess what? There is a federal statute that says the feds can enforce state criminal law, state violations. So, for example, there is no federal statute for trespassing. Did you know that? There's no federal trespassing statute. But of course, every state has a state trespassing statute. And if you trespass on federal property, the federal government gets to charge you with the state version of the trespassing law in federal court. So the federal officers here have every authority to charge all of these people with the local state version of the law that prohibits standing in the street. That's on top of course, being able to charge them for things like impeding the lawful activities of federal law enforcement, which is a federal statute, good for 8 years in prison. Oh, look, everything's so peaceful here. I'm having a pumpkin spice latte, and there's no riots in this part of Portland. As if that's evidence that this is not happening. The left is deluded. And we're supposed to believe that this is not happening. So this is a clip of the Portland Police Department thinking that they were going to step up and do something to Antifa. And you know what Antifa and the agitators do? They chase the police out of the area. And what are they chanting? Whose streets? Our streets. Antifa streets. That is insurrection against the lawfully elected government. Nobody elected Antifa. They're not an authority over anything legally, but they're chasing away the agents of the state who are supposed to be representing the lawful democratically elected government of Oregon in this particular case. Look how shameful this is. Abandoning the field of battle, the proud Portland Police Department. A little more about these lawyers. The National Lawyers Guild, the legal arm of Antifa, funded by George Soros. The administration should take all of these lawyers down on RICO charges. Lawyers are not allowed to be accessories to unlawful activity. If you know your client's going to rob a bank, you don't get to stand outside the bank while he's robbing it. So when he comes out, you're there to represent him right away. That's not part of the privilege of being an attorney. In the old mafia days, when they were being taken down, on too many occasions, it was found that the mafia lawyers were not just providing legal advice and representation, but were helping plan things to make it more difficult for their clients to get convicted. If you're part of the criminal enterprise, you're not acting as a lawyer, you're acting as an accessory. There is no privilege. And those lawyers in the mafia days got prosecuted. They got taken off of cases. The same exact thing should happen to these lawyers, but somebody has to be willing, has to have the testicle fortitude to do it. Pam Bondi. Pam, what are you doing, Pam? What are you up to these days? Does it feel to anybody that if you discovered that Pam Bondi had spent the last several months on vacation on a tropical island, would that surprise you? Does anybody see anything happening? I mean, other than an occasional social media post from her? I did notice when it came to the indictment of James Brian Lyon Comey, Trump put out a thank you statement on Truth Social, and he thanked Kash Patel. He thanked the woman, Lindsay Hallahan, whatever her name is, the woman he appointed as the interim U.S. Attorney General who brought this indictment to a close over the finish line. He thanked them. You know who he did not thank by name? He thanked the DOJ generically. You know who he didn't thank by name for succeeding in the appropriate indictment of James Brian Lyon Comey? Pam Bondi was not mentioned. Pam Bondi was not mentioned. Something has to be done to hold these accessory lawyers in check, to go after the corrupt judges and the district attorneys who are just let these people out. Don't prosecute them on grounds of malfeasance, conspiracy. There are infinite foot soldiers. And if we're just arresting them and they're going through a rotating door and coming right back out, what is the point? Prosecutors do have the discretion to allocate their own resources. They're not required to prosecute every case. But if they're doing it on a systematically corrupt way, that's malfeasance of office. That's grounds for removal of a prosecutor.